Nobody could have imagined that when Millionaire CEO Jonathan Blake stopped at a small diner in rural Montana during a blizzard, he would meet a 13-year-old girl running the entire restaurant alone. But what she told him about her life would shatter his heart and inspire the most meaningful business decision he'd ever make. Before we get to this wonderful story, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let's get back to the story. The Montana highway stretched endlessly through the snow-covered landscape as Jonathan Blake gripped the steering wheel of his Range Rover, fighting against the fierce winds of an unexpected blizzard that had turned his routine business trip into a survival challenge. At 42, Jonathan commanded Blake Industries, a hospitality empire that owned over 200 upscale restaurants and hotels across North America, generating annual revenues exceeding $5 billion. He'd been driving from Billings to Missoula for a critical acquisition meeting when the storm hit with surprising intensity. Weather reports had predicted light snow, but within an hour, visibility had dropped to near zero and the interstate had become treacherous. Jonathan, accustomed to traveling in luxury and comfort, found himself genuinely concerned about reaching safety before conditions worsened further. As snow accumulated on his windshield faster than his wipers could clear it, Jonathan realized he needed to find shelter immediately. The GPS showed he was still 40 miles from the nearest major town, but a small symbol indicated a restaurant just ahead, a place called Annie's Diner, in what appeared to be little more than a crossroads community. Through the swirling snow, Jonathan spotted a weathered neon sign and pulled into the gravel parking lot of a modest building that looked like it had been serving travelers for decades. The diner appeared to be the only business for miles, a beacon of warmth and safety in the midst of the growing storm. But when Jonathan stepped inside this humble diner, what he discovered would challenge everything he thought he knew about responsibility, determination, and the incredible strength that some people find when they have no other choice. The brass bell above the door chimed as Jonathan entered the diner, grateful to escape the howling wind and stinging snow. The interior was exactly what he'd expected from the exterior: worn vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and the lingering aroma of coffee and home-cooked food that characterized small-town diners across America. What Jonathan hadn't expected was to find the restaurant being operated entirely by a young girl who couldn't be more than 13 years old. She stood behind the counter, expertly managing multiple tasks simultaneously, taking a phone order, monitoring something cooking on the grill, and preparing coffee with the practiced efficiency of an experienced restaurant professional. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore an apron that was clearly too large for her small frame. "Good evening, sir," she called out cheerfully as Jonathan shook snow from his expensive coat. "Please sit anywhere you'd like. I'll be right with you once I finish this order." Jonathan chose a booth near the window and watched in fascination as the girl moved through the diner with remarkable competence. She completed the phone conversation, flipped burgers on the grill, delivered plates to two truckers at the counter, and poured fresh coffee for an elderly couple in the corner booth, all while maintaining a warm, professional demeanor that would impress seasoned restaurant managers. When she finally approached his table with a menu and coffee pot, Jonathan couldn't contain his curiosity any longer. "Are you running this place by yourself?" he asked, accepting the steaming cup of coffee she offered. The girl nodded matter-of-factly, as if this were perfectly normal. "Yes, sir. My name's Annie, and this is my family's diner. Can I start you with something to drink besides coffee, or would you like to hear tonight's specials?" Her professional composure was remarkable, but Jonathan noticed the fatigue in her young eyes and wondered where the adult supervision might be. When Annie revealed the heartbreaking truth about why she was working alone, Jonathan discovered a story of family loyalty so powerful it would change his understanding of what it means to truly serve others. "Annie," Jonathan said gently, "I don't mean to pry, but where are your parents? Shouldn't there be an adult helping you run the restaurant?" Annie's professional smile faltered slightly, revealing the vulnerable child beneath the competent exterior. She glanced around the diner to ensure other customers weren't listening, then sat across from Jonathan in the booth. "My dad's at the hospital in Billings with my mom," she explained quietly. "She's been sick for about 3 months now. The doctors think it might be her heart, and Dad stays with her as much as possible. This diner is our family's only income, so someone has to keep it open." Jonathan felt his chest tighten as he began to understand the enormous responsibility this child had shouldered. And that someone is you? Dad taught me how to work the grill and handle the register when I was 10, Annie replied with obvious pride. Mom showed me how to manage orders and talk to customers. I've been helping here after school and on weekends for years, so when they needed someone to keep things running. She shrugged as if taking on such massive responsibility was simply the natural thing to do. How long have you been managing the diner alone? About 6 weeks now. Dad comes back when he can, usually once or twice a week, but he doesn't want to leave Mom alone for long periods. The doctors say she needs emotional support as much as medical treatment. The casual way Annie described this overwhelming situation, running a business single-handedly while her parents dealt with a medical crisis, stunned Jonathan. This 13-year-old was handling responsibilities that would challenge most adults. Annie, when do you go to school? When do you sleep? Annie's expression grew more tired as she considered his questions. I do online schoolwork early in the morning before the diner opens, and I study late at night after closing. It's not ideal, but I'm keeping up with my grades. Sleep. She paused, looking suddenly much younger. I get a few hours when I can. But when Jonathan witnessed Annie's extraordinary skills in action during the dinner rush, he realized he was watching someone who possessed natural hospitality talents that his industry executives could never teach. As if summoned by their conversation, the dinner rush began in earnest. The blizzard had apparently forced several travelers to seek shelter, and within minutes, Annie's diner was filled with truckers, stranded motorists, and locals who had braved the storm for a warm meal. Jonathan watched in amazement as Annie transformed into a one-person restaurant operation that functioned with remarkable efficiency. She took orders from multiple tables while monitoring the grill, prepared complex meals from memory, handled the cash register, and maintained friendly conversation with every customer, all while ensuring that coffee cups remained full and everyone felt welcome. What impressed Jonathan most wasn't just her technical competence, but the genuine care she showed for each person in the diner. She remembered the trucker's usual orders, asked about the elderly couple's grandchildren, and offered extra blankets to travelers who seemed cold from their journey through the storm. "Honey," called one of the truckers, "this pot roast is better than my grandmother's, and that's saying something." Annie beamed with pride. "That's Mom's recipe. She taught me all her cooking secrets before she got sick." When a family with young children expressed concern about being stuck in the storm, Annie immediately offered them free hot chocolate and assured them they could stay as long as needed. She even provided coloring books and crayons she kept behind the counter for such situations. "This girl has more natural hospitality instinct than most of my general managers," Jonathan thought to himself, watching Annie anticipate customer needs and create an atmosphere of warmth and safety that went far beyond simple food service. As the evening progressed, Jonathan realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. Not just a child managing adult responsibilities, but a natural-born restaurateur who understood that true hospitality means caring for people during their most vulnerable moments. Ralph. When Jonathan learned about Annie's impossible dream despite her overwhelming circumstances, he discovered the kind of passion and vision that could revolutionize his entire industry. During a brief lull in the dinner rush, Annie returned to Jonathan's booth to refill his coffee and check on his meal. He had ordered the pot roast the trucker had praised, and it was indeed exceptional, comfort food prepared with the skill and love that characterize the best family restaurants. "Annie," Jonathan said, "this food is remarkable, and the way you run this place is genuinely impressive. Have you ever thought about what you want to do when you grow up?" Annie's entire demeanor changed, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm that transcended her current exhausting circumstances. "I want to be a chef and restaurant owner like my parents, but I want to create places that specialize in helping families during difficult times." Jonathan leaned forward, intrigued by her response. "What do you mean? Like when someone's in the hospital, or when families are traveling and get stuck in storms like tonight, or when people just need somewhere warm and safe to feel better about things." Annie's voice grew more animated as she described her vision. "I want to build restaurants that aren't just about serving food. They're about taking care of people when they need it most." The sophistication of her concept amazed Jonathan. This 13-year-old had identified a market niche that most hospitality professionals never considered: restaurants as community support systems rather than just commercial enterprises. "That's an incredibly thoughtful and ambitious goal," Jonathan said sincerely. "What's preventing you from pursuing it?" Annie's expression grew more realistic without losing its underlying optimism. "Money mostly, and time. Dad says we might have to sell the diner to pay Mom's medical bills, which means I'd need to find a regular job after school instead of learning the restaurant business. College for culinary training seems pretty impossible right now." The heartbreaking practicality of her concerns hit Jonathan hard. Here was a young woman with extraordinary natural talent and a meaningful vision for hospitality, but circumstances beyond her control were threatening to derail her dreams before they could even begin. Jonathan's spontaneous decision would either save Annie's family business or prove that true success is measured not by profit margins, but by the lives you choose to transform. Jonathan made a decision that surprised even himself. "Annie, what if I told you that I own restaurants and hotels across the country, and I'd like to help you achieve your goals?" Annie stared at him with confusion and growing hope. "You own restaurants? What kind of restaurants?" "All kinds," Jonathan replied, pulling out his business card. "My company operates over 200 establishments, from casual dining to luxury hotels. And what I've seen here tonight, the way you care for customers, manage operations, and create atmosphere, represents the kind of hospitality excellence that my industry needs more of." Annie studied the business card with widening eyes. "Blake Industries. I've heard of your company. You own some of the fanciest places in the country." "We do, but we don't have anything as genuinely special as what you've created here." "Annie, I'd like to make you an offer. I want to pay off your family's medical bills, ensure this diner can stay in your family, and provide you with culinary training and business education so you can build the kind of restaurants you've described." Annie's eyes filled with tears as she processed what Jonathan was offering. "Sir, that's incredibly generous. But why would you do all that for someone you just met?" Jonathan looked around the diner, at the truckers who had found refuge from the storm, at the stranded family whose children were now laughing over hot chocolate, at the elderly couple who had been treated like beloved relatives rather than just customers. "Because, Annie, you've already proven that you understand something my industry has forgotten, that the best restaurants don't just serve food, they serve people. And that's exactly the kind of hospitality vision that can change the world." Butillo. But when Annie asked the question that revealed the true depth of her character, Jonathan realized he wasn't just helping one remarkable girl. He was investing in a future that could transform how America thinks about community and care. Annie was quiet for several long moments, clearly overwhelmed by the magnitude of Jonathan's offer. When she finally spoke, her question revealed the maturity and wisdom that had impressed him all evening. "Mr. Blake, if you help our family, what would happen to all the people who depend on this diner? The truckers who stop here regularly, the families who come here when they're traveling, the neighbors who treat this place like their community center?" Jonathan felt something profound shift in his understanding of what Annie represented. Her first concern wasn't about her own opportunities, but about her responsibility to the community that had supported her family. "What if I told you that helping people like them is exactly what I want your future restaurants to focus on?" Jonathan replied. "What if we could create a whole chain of establishments that combine excellent food with genuine community support?" Annie's face lit up with understanding. "You mean restaurants that are like community centers? Places where people can come not just to eat, but to find help and friendship when they need it?" Exactly. Annie's house restaurants, locations that serve great food while also providing resources for families in crisis, community meeting spaces, and employment opportunities for people who need second chances. And this diner could be the first one? This diner would be the prototype that proves the concept works. We'd keep everything that makes it special while adding resources to help even more people. Annie looked around her family's restaurant with new eyes, seeing not just the place where she'd grown up, but the foundation for a vision that could impact countless lives. What happened next would launch a restaurant revolution that changed thousands of lives and redefined what it means to use business success for genuine good. 6 months later, Annie's Diner had been transformed into the flagship location of Annie's House, a revolutionary restaurant concept that combined exceptional comfort food with community support services. The original diner's charm remained intact, but Jonathan's investment had added a community meeting room, a resource center where local social workers provided assistance twice weekly, and employment training programs for people seeking new opportunities. Annie herself had begun formal culinary training with some of the industry's finest chefs, while continuing to manage daily operations alongside her parents, who were now both healthy and deeply involved in the business's expansion. More remarkably, the Annie's House concept had attracted attention from hospitality professionals nationwide. Jonathan's company was receiving requests from communities across America asking for their own Annie's House location, restaurants that would serve as both excellent dining establishments and community support centers. At 17, Annie Blake, Jonathan had legally adopted her as his daughter with her parents' blessing, had become the youngest certified executive chef in Montana, while simultaneously completing her senior year of high school and helping manage 12 Annie's House locations across the Mountain West. Each restaurant maintained the same commitment to exceptional food and community care that had characterized the original diner. The locations provided employment for over 300 people, served as meeting places for local support groups, and had helped coordinate assistance for hundreds of families during medical emergencies, natural disasters, and economic hardships. Annie's House had grown into a nationwide network of 67 community-focused restaurants, each adapted to serve its local area's specific needs, while maintaining the core mission of combining great food with genuine care for people. Annie herself, now 22, had completed culinary school and business training while never losing sight of the values that had impressed Jonathan during that snowy evening in Montana. She regularly spoke at hospitality industry conferences about community-centered hospitality and had been featured on the cover of Restaurant Business magazine as the young chef changing how America dines. Jonathan kept 2 photos prominently displayed in his office, one showing Annie at 13 managing the original diner during the blizzard, and another from the grand opening of the 50th Annie's House location, where she cut the ribbon while her proud parents and Jonathan watched. The most successful business decision Jonathan Blake ever made wasn't acquiring a competitor or expanding into a new market. It was recognizing that a 13-year-old girl working alone in a Montana diner possessed not just exceptional hospitality skills, but a vision for community care that could transform an entire industry. Today, the Annie's House network has served over 2 million meals while providing community support services that have touched tens of thousands of lives. Annie's original concept, restaurants as centers of care rather than just commerce, has inspired similar programs across multiple industries. Jonathan learned that true hospitality isn't about luxury amenities or 5-star ratings. It's about creating spaces where people feel valued, supported, and cared for during both ordinary moments and extraordinary challenges. Sometimes the most important business meetings happen in small diners during snowstorms, when a teenage girl serving coffee and pot roast teaches a millionaire CEO that the best restaurants don't just feed bodies, they nourish communities, support families, and prove that business success is most meaningful when it serves the deepest human needs. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.